This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
What y'all want to talk about today, man? Honestly. Because when you get to this point of this kind of season, the reality is that the conversations you're having are inherently gonna disregard whatever's happening for the last two games of a season like this. Like the conversations around Kevin Stefanski, will he keep his job or not? Is that really gonna be determined in these last two games, or are they spending these next 2 weeks shuffling around paperwork, making sure that their Q's and T's are crossed and all those things, and making sure that whatever decision they make, they're comfortable with making, and they have a process outlined with what they're going to do if they make that decision. I mean, that's really what they're doing. All the critical decisions have been made, even with something like Shedeur, right? That has been the selling point of the last few weeks of the season. And there's certainly one thing Shedeur can do to greatly affect his standing with the team, which is win games. But if he doesn't win today and he doesn't win next week, then not much that he can do in these 2 weeks other than winning would really change things. And that's assuming he's the starter for the last game of the season. We've seen Browns pull some shenanigans there. And that's assuming that the Browns are playing straight up in this game versus Pittsburgh, right? Every conversation we want to have, these games are an afterthought in those conversations. There's no more wait and see. If the last 2 years have made you want to fire Kevin Stefanski, there's no more wait and see on that. You are at the point where you want to fire Kevin Stefanski, and if it happened today, if it happens tomorrow, if it happens the week after tomorrow, it's not going to feel any different, right? If you're at the point to where you blame this on specific position coaches, or maybe you blame this on Andrew Berry, like your mind is made up. These last couple of games, the game that we're going to see today versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, there's not much in those games that's left there to really change your mind on. I think the last point that this team could have changed some minds on was maybe that game versus Tennessee. Maybe that game. Maybe the Chicago game. But the reality is that once you lost to Tennessee, you kind of made it clear what the most obvious path for the Browns would be going forward. It's a interesting but unenviable place that Browns fans have found themselves in the last couple of years. To tell you how forgettable these actual games are at the end of the season when it's like this, right? How forgettable a win or a loss here would be. I remember in the middle of this season, somebody bringing up that the Browns played the Miami Dolphins last year, and I legitimately had to look up the game to confirm that happened because I had not remembered it. And then I had to confirm that I did a live stream during that game. And yes, I confirmed that I live streamed one of those games. It was Tyler Huntley versus Dorian Thompson-Robinson at the end of the season. And it was a game so forgettable that I literally forgot streaming it, making videos about it, and talking about that game. That's how forgettable this portion of the season is. You might feel strongly like 10 minutes after the result of this game, one way or the other. And maybe if the Browns win here to a certain section of the fan base that is dead set on tanking, that's going to have a bit of an effect on them and make this a little bit more memorable. But if the Browns lose this game like they're projected to lose this game, you're not going to really remember it that much, right? I mean, there's a million week 18 Cincinnati Bengal games that I don't remember. You don't remember them either. This is kind of the regrettable place that the Browns have us in. And hopefully this is not a permanent situation with the Cleveland Browns. Hopefully these last 2 years are a means to an end. And when I say a means to an end, I mean a quarterback. We're going to talk about that point just a little bit more. But before I do that, I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right, so I touched on quarterbacks earlier, and I want to touch on this. One, no matter what fan base you are, if you aren't in a truly, like, let's say if you're starting Tim Boyle, this conversation doesn't apply to you. If you're starting a Tim Boyle level quarterback, this conversation does not apply to you. But if you're starting a quarterback that anybody has any ounce of hope in, the idea of drafting a quarterback in December is always going to be unpopular, right? My biggest example of this is what I remember from watching the Cincinnati Bengals go through this. My homeboy Ace Boogie, he is a Bengals fan. He covers the Bengals. And I remember him dealing with Bengal fans that did not want to move off of Andy Dalton into December before they drafted Joe Burrow. And they did not want to draft Joe Burrow. And that sounds ridiculous now, right? Because it's Joe Burrow and he's much better than Andy Dalton. He got to a Super Bowl. But that's what some people in that fan base wanted at that specific time. And that's just kind of how NFL fan bases react to change and moving on from one quarterback that they maybe grew an attachment, or maybe they bought a jersey for that quarterback or whatever it is. Fans are kind of wired to hang on to hope, especially when you're a fan of a team like the Cleveland Browns, right? You're kind of wired to hang on to hope, which means it's not going to take much to get you excited and to get you to activate those hopeful neurons in your brain. It's not going to take much. So when you're activated and you're thinking about the hopeful situations for Shador, and somebody interrupts that and says, nah, you're going to have to figure out how to be hopeful about a different quarterback, you're going to have a negative reaction to that. But usually by the time we get to the combine, most people, if the Browns are in line to take a quarterback, will also be in line to take a quarterback. I think that part, like the debate that people are having right now, will sort itself out relatively soon. I just think people are at a very natural place with that debate. For me, I've been looking at these quarterbacks for like 2 years now, right? I've been talking about them for 2 years, talking to people who've been talking about them for multiple years. So like, this isn't a new conversation for me. I've already wrapped my head around it. A lot of people, they're just learning who Dante Moore is. They're just learning who Fernando Mendoza is. Maybe they've watched 1 or 2 games of them play. Give it time. They'll be in line after a while, right? But December's usually not that time where people get in line with it. So that's that whole part of it, right? If we want to talk about my philosophy on quarterback in general, I'll be brief here, but I think there's teams with quarterbacks and there's teams without quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's the real true tier system of the NFL. If you have a top 12 quarterback, maybe if you want to be more lenient, you can say top 16, you have a shot. If you don't have one of those quarterbacks, then you're constantly trying to hope that everything falls in place at the same time for you in order for you to have maybe a run to the semifinals, but usually not to the conference finals and definitely not to the Super Bowl. I know people love to bring up examples like Philly, but Philly has a quarterback, right? They got extremely lucky with their quarterback, taking him in the second round, but he's still a quarterback, right? And the goal here isn't to get lucky and get extreme value with the quarterback. The goal here is to get a quarterback. So I think if you are the Cleveland Browns, and I've said this last year, I just didn't think that any of the quarterbacks in the top of the draft last year were prospects that I would put in the top 5 of the draft class. But I've always said this. If you feel like there's a quarterback that's worthy of a top 5 pick, and you're the Cleveland Browns, you take him. No doubt about it, you take him. And that's the position that the Browns might be in. If they're in that position, they should do it. I think that's pretty simple. And you figure out the rest as you go. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on the whole quarterback thing and all the debate people are having about it. I would just, for those who are frustrated with like the part of the fan base that doesn't want to take a quarterback, I would just give it time, to be honest with you. Like, people will come around. Like, all those people arguing with Ace about how they should go with Andy Dalton, they're not still fucking arguing with him, right? Like, and they weren't arguing with him for that long. So just keep that in mind. People are just in a natural place for people who don't follow college football year round, who don't really follow the college, the NFL scouting process year round. They might feel like they're behind in this conversation. They're working off old information. It's because it's likely true. And just let them catch up. And by the time we get to the combine, everybody's gonna be caught up, right? You know what I mean? When they're watching ESPN and Mel Kiper's like, oh my God, man, Dante Moore, he's amazing, he's good. Then they'll catch up. Like, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. The other thing that this season has left is the Myles Garrett sack record, right? And Myles Garrett's sack record is probably the most important thing about this season entirely. It's the only thing that's going to make you remember this part of the season, right? I don't know if I brought it up in the first part of this section. I've re-recorded this video multiple times, so I don't know if I brought this up, but I literally forgot a game that the Browns played against the Miami Dolphins last year. If Myles gets the big sack in this game, it's not going to be forgotten, right? But other than that, man, like these games have no importance. And I'm not somebody who likes to say the regular season isn't important. I think winning games does matter most of the time, even when you're not going to make the playoffs. But these last 2 games are just lame duck games. Like, we don't even know if the head coach is still going to be here. We don't know if half the veterans that are in the locker room are going to be here. Like, there might be a full clearinghouse. Like, you don't really know. So what happens here in these last 2 games, it just kind of feels like we're just waiting for a press release to be dropped at the end of the last game of the season to figure out what the hell we're doing, this off season. So that's kind of my thoughts about the end of the year, the doldrums of the end of the year. Hopefully next year we're talking about playoff positioning, if we should rest our starters before the playoffs, and all kind of bright future shit, and how our offense is going to translate to the new dome that we're building whenever the fuck that opens. Hopefully we're having a much better time next year. But this is this year, So we'll see what happens. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. And I'll see you on stream, because I'm still going to stream this game, man. We still going to watch this game, and we're still going to have a damn good time watching this game, as we always do. Y'all have a good one.